Patterson Foundation
strengthens people, organizations, and communities by focusing on issues that address mutual aspirations,
foster wide participation, and encourage learning and sharing.
Welcome to Civic Sparks, a Beyond the Blog podcast of the Patterson Foundation. My name is Leah Verier-Dunn with the Patterson Foundation and your host today as we look into voter education and civic responsibility. We'll talk about why this work matters and why the Patterson Foundation cares. And to do this with me is none other than Debra Jacobs, the president and CEO of the Patterson Foundation. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Leah. This is such an important topic, and I'm thrilled we're going to dive in together.
Me too. So before we go into what's happening right now, I just want to talk a little bit more about the history and the family history of the Patterson family, because there's media, we've got military, we've got some government. Can you explain a little bit about that history and how we got here?
Well, and I think it's a superb opportunity to maybe have some educational moments about how the Patterson Foundation came to be about, all right? So we actually trace our roots back to the mid-1800s when Joseph Medill bought the Chicago Tribune for two purposes. One, to make money, and second, to get Abraham Lincoln elected president. So it should not be a surprise he was wildly successful with both of those. As we go down through the ages with the family, the two grandsons were in the military and World War I. They came back to run the Chicago Tribune, except there was a slight challenge because they had different ideologies. Colonel McCormick was a capitalist. Captain Patterson had socialist tendencies. They had a voting trust to protect the Chicago Tribune, the source of money, journalism. But then Captain Patterson moved to New York City to create the New York Daily News. If you've ever seen the New York Daily News, it's a tabloid type newspaper, so every man on the subway could get the news from the photojournalism that was in there. So there's this track record of innovation and how things work, electing Abraham Lincoln. So we have the source of media. We have the source media journalism embracing new realities and the responsibility of being an active participant in your community. That's really what journalism is about. It's educating and engaging the public so that they can create a more vibrant society, civic responsibility that we each have. So the link between journalism and civic responsibility is quite firm. I do want to be clear. The Patterson Foundation is not engaged in politics. We're very engaged in how do we help people make a better society. So I'm not sure I was exactly clear on why or how TPF works. So I'm going to elaborate just a little bit more here, is that with the Patterson Foundation's charter, that Dorothy Patterson, who actually was married into the family, so she gave us an unfettered charter. And that unfettered charter gave us flexibility, opportunity, and responsibility to do good and to do it well. So it weaves back into, we always want to honor where did the money come from, how did people think about it, and what's our responsibility to make a difference?
So I was actually at Patriot Plaza last week, and I was looking at the plaque that discussed the history, and I knew the history, but it sort of was a reminder, and it really affirmed this work in voter education and civic responsibility, because you see how over time showing up in a way that isn't for your own good, but to encourage others to participate and to know and to learn and to be educated on what's happening in their region and their community and their world. And I just was, it really affirmed the work that we're doing when I saw that. So I was happy to do that. And I hope that people listening know to go check out Patriot Plaza.
Yes, because Patriot Plaza, dawn to dusk, people can visit 7 days a week.
Yeah, it's such a remarkable place. So with that history, what really led the Patterson Foundation to consider creating an initiative that's focused in voter education and civic responsibility?
Well, actually, I'm going to rewind again.
Okay.
Because our first step into civic responsibility came with the census. And when the census was coming out, and there was we lived in a society that there's a lot of misinformation out there, there's a lot of mistrust, and we thought, isn't it our responsibility to, we use two words, educate and engage. Educate and engage. To educate and engage people about the census is serious, because if we do not all participate, we are going to leave money on the table for roads, for libraries, for services in school, for school lunch programs. And yet people were like, oh, it doesn't matter if I fill out the census. Do I really need to do it? So in terms of the Patterson Foundation does not work in isolation, we reached out to the Herald Tribune journalism, and we said, could we work with you on helping to educate and engage people about the importance of the census so that we can bump the participation? Now, we think it was successful, all right, just because we got a lot of different feedback on how we did it. Do we think we are responsible for the census numbers? No, because there is everything the Patterson Foundation does is complex, and we are but one thread in the tapestry, but we hope to be a vibrant thread. So we say, if we didn't do the census, what would have been the results? Because Florida still left money on the table. And it's just a tragic. If you want to give up a piece of your pie, really? Why?
I think it's so interesting because the census is something that involves everyone in every household, but I never really remember anyone talking about it that much. And I know it's only, it only comes around when it does every 10 years.
10 years.
But I remember not thinking it was that big of a deal because I just didn't really know what it resulted in. So helping people to understand that those numbers relate to the dollars that we get that then relate to the things that help make our community better and stronger really might make somebody engage in a different way once they realize that.
Yes. So again, that was our first foray into civic responsibility, because each one of us went through school at different times. We all think everyone learns the same way and the same things that we did, but life changes and curriculum changes. And I'm actually going to detour here, because one of the things with civic responsibility is I do think kids can be the best teachers. So we know that I'm detouring, but we know from the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading with the attendance awareness contest, the kids are writing the posters, but they're talking to their parents about, it's important that I be in school every day. So that civic responsibility, actually, it's not just what we think of in terms of elections and government and voting. Civic responsibility is understanding what it takes to be successful.
Absolutely. And I think making sure that everyone, children through adults, have the opportunities to be able to learn and to know, and then they get to share that forward also. And like you said, with the children learning about attendance and the importance of it in school, and then sharing that with their parents versus it having to come in the other direction always. So on that note, we talk about strengthening people, organizations, and the community at the Patterson Foundation. How do you feel this type of work supports the aspiration of strengthening those pieces?
Yeah, so let's think about our community. Our community is, and communities, every community is different. And even the word community, is it your neighborhood you're talking about, your town, your county, what is it? It's people beyond my house. So wherever I live and I'm in an ecosystem, whether I want to be in an ecosystem or not, I'm in an ecosystem. So knowing who else is in it and what matters to them and what matters to me. And so civic responsibility is being engaged in life in your community. And voting, the voting thing, it's almost become a little bit political, and doesn't need to be political. Should it be political? I bet even in Abraham Lincoln's days there were notorious things going on, and somehow we have persevered because people stepped up and said, yes, I'm going to participate. So how does the voting education initiative that the Patterson Foundation has strengthens people? First of all, it gives us a chance to talk to each other. All right, so we believe building relationships helps us build a stronger community. When we learn anything, we are actually stronger because we learned something that we didn't know about before, and we can be proud that we know something that we didn't know before. So I think the whole voter education, it's part of us making sure we have a more vibrant civic outlook, but it's also each one of us as we learn. I have to say, I learn something every election cycle that I didn't know before. And I vote in every election. And I think of the people who've never voted, the feeling I have, I would love others to enjoy that feeling as well. So I think that strengthening inside of people going, no, I do this and I'm making a difference. I'm stronger and I'm making my community stronger.
Absolutely. And by strengthening that individual, and then when they show up at the polls, the more people that are showing up to vote, that means that we have a better sense of everybody's voice versus the limited numbers that show up. So then it trickles, it's those ripple effects from the individual, then onto the community, and then beyond. So when I think of widespread participation, which is, a common term around here, I think voting is at the top of the list and important things to engage the community at large. So what are the ways that you're hoping this initiative will really encourage widespread participation?
So again, the Patterson Foundation is not involved with politics. We try to stay right in the center about the importance of voting, okay, the importance of being engaged. And I know I'm going to go backwards in history, but I can remember when I was a little girl and I went with my mom and dad to vote, and they let me stand. You had to, in those days, you had a big curtain you pulled around, and I got to watch them. And I mean, it was a big deal. My grandmother was a poll worker, and I did hear all about who brought the brownies, who bought the potato salad, who brought the whatever, but it was this sense of community on the day of voting that is a prideful thing. And I do think that whether you're single or whether you're in a family or your apartment complex could actually be a polling place. How sad it would be if you lived near a polling place and you didn't participate. But people, there actually might be a fear. Okay, there could be I don't know really, I've never voted before. Think about it, a lot as adults don't like to show what they don't know. So back to fostering wide participation, anything that the Patterson Foundation can do to help people get comfortable in making sure their opinions are heard. And that's the power of the vote, for the personal pride that I expressed my opinions, but I'm part of something bigger. I was thinking about when people say, oh, my vote doesn't count. Okay, my vote doesn't count. And I go, wait a second. Would you say to every raindrop, you don't count? All right? You can't say that because every raindrop comes together with other raindrops and we get a nice shower. So I'm back into this wide participation. Why can't we each be a raindrop and get in there and create a beautiful spring shower?
Yeah, I love that. Well, we need those showers right now more
right now.
than
Yes,
ever.
yes.
I really appreciate that image. And I do think that narrative of my vote doesn't count is really prevalent right now. How do you think this initiative can combat that feeling?
Well, I actually use examples when I talk to people about it because my vote doesn't count. I have watched an election for a city commission race where that race was lost by 200 votes. Okay? And you go, wait a minute. Were there not 201 people sitting in their homes and not voting that day that could have changed the face of that election? I know a congressional race that it was under 100 votes differential. You can't say your vote doesn't count because it could be that narrow. So we should not lean on what doesn't work or what isn't, but lean lean into the power that we have and the pride that we have, that we're fortunate enough to vote. Think of the stories that we read in the news about third world countries where people will line up and travel for days to cast their vote. In ours, relatively simple to cast our vote. And we have the luxury of having different ways to vote. Again, Leah, I'm not sure everybody knows there are many ways they can vote.
Yeah, and what's great is the Voter Education Initiative is going to be putting out some flyers, which will have lots of election information. And it will include things like if you're interested in voting by mail or you're not sure where your polling place is, where do I look to find this? And that leads me to just in general talking about the abundance of resources that exist. First year supervisors of elections for each county is such a great place to go when there is that fear of my vote doesn't count, or I don't know who to vote for, or I don't know how to do this. I've never done it before. Now, we know that people are afraid, and I think there have been many organizations that have created resources. One that I'm a really big fan of is Vote 411, which was created by the League of Women Voters. Now, there are some challenges because the information is more robust in the counties that have a League of Women chapter. But it's a great place, and I think they usually populate the information at the end of June to go in and not just learn about the candidates, but they actually give questions to all of the different candidates, and that team gets to answer how they feel about those things. So you kind of get to understand their stance rather than just one little blurb on their website. And then also, which I think is the most confusing part of the ballot, are the ballot measures and the amendments. That language is not typically a language that I speak, so I need somebody to help me understand it in layman's terms. And on Vote 411 and several other websites, they have those things broken down so that you don't feel like I have no idea, and you actually go in feeling very assured in which way you want to vote about something, or how it might affect you if you do this way or that way. So it's pretty wonderful that we have these resources, and I think our initiative goals are to help share those with people. It's not for us to reinvent the wheel, but for us to say, hey, we want to make sure this is available for you.
Well, and again, people are very busy. Yeah. They're balancing life, work, challenges that come up. So, the world of elections is not in their day-to-day life, and they can be barraged with media messaging coming at them. And it's like, oh, when is this election going to be over so I don't have to have these messages coming at them? And so hopefully the way the Patterson Foundation is sharing information, it's kind of taking the chaos out of it into here's all you have to do.
Right.
This is how you register. This is how you can vote. You've got these flexibilities. And I love that we're doing it wherever we show up. We're there to just help people understand what they can do and how they can do it. Yeah. So, we also have electronic means, but it's that. I do think it helps when I'm talking to a person. Absolutely. And they just say, no, it's not that hard. Okay, this is how you do it. And you can't, it's easy.
People need help demystifying the process and not feeling so overwhelmed, because if I'm assuming everyone else is like me, in election season, I get 100 text messages a day from every candidate in the entire country. And it's at a certain point you want to go, enough. And how can you, like you said, remove the chaos and get down to the stuff that you really need to know.
And while we would love every voter to understand every candidate, every issue, that would be wonderful. I think it's hard for anyone to know everything about everyone, but you can know enough about an office that resonates with you. So if schools are important to you, and honestly, schools are important to people who are just not parents. Mm-hmm. Schools, one of the beautiful parts about our region is we pass referendum to support schools, and the biggest yes votes come from the areas of zip codes that do not have children. So it says education is important. Oh, I do detour. I should get back to the topic. All right, so getting back to the topic is that it's okay. You don't necessarily have to vote for everything that's on the ballot. If you do not understand something, or if you don't know about that, it's okay that you don't fill it out. but please fill out in every office or item that you have understanding of or you care about.
Absolutely. I know that we are planning to give some of our flyers and resources to our engagement team members, and that they're going to distribute those, at different events where we might be popping up with a table or something. How else are we hoping that we can really engage with the community to make sure that they're feeling they have the tools that they need?
Well, I do want to remind ourselves we're not in charge of anything. Okay, we are, again, but one thread in what is happening in the community. I think us sharing our resources with other entities that can share them with their clients and audiences. Even if we think about nonprofits or businesses each have two things. They have clients and they have staff. All right, so if we just share our resources with entities, they can put them out on their counters. They can make sure that they're put in with their employees' payrolls or back in the lunch counters, just so that people know and are aware. We can't force people to vote, but we can hopefully inspire people to the higher, greater good. And that gets back to TPF's strengthening individuals, organizations around fostering wide participations, around shared quality of life aspirations. We want good. And even if we tussle and we disagree about how we do it, I'm pretty sure that everyone wants a safe neighborhood. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that everybody wants children to be successful. I'm pretty sure that people want clean water. So if these are issues that are in the scheme right now, we want to help you weigh in on your opinion of that.
Yeah. All of this just makes me think of our goal for building connective tissue, because it's not just about, sharing one thing to a gazillion people, but it's really about having a meaningful conversation with one person and then that spreading to the next person. And so leaning in to that connective tissue that we've built, but then that's been built beyond the relationships that we have, so that we all feel trusting and safe and confident walking into the polls. Is there anything else you feel like you want to make sure we discuss?
I want to be sure that our listeners feel the opportunity that every one of us has to be part of building the society that we all really want. And voting is part of that. So it's showing up, understanding what's important, and how can I make a difference. And this is something that you don't have to pay to do this.
Yeah.
You do not have to pay to vote. Okay, we have to pay for everything else. This is one of your benefits. And I also so I want people to know, please lean in and let's all create this society around our shared quality of life aspirations. I also want to laud the supervisors of elections offices. I think they do an extraordinary I think they are extraordinary. They're patient. They help people understand. I only have positive things about how they want to help people engage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think it's important for people to know if something doesn't feel right or something went wrong when you're voting, that there are services in place. I know our flyers have all the helpline numbers. You can also find them really easily online. So if something does feel complicated, it shouldn't, and there are people who can help with that.
Who can help you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and we didn't talk about how all of our flyers are in multiple languages.
Yes. So we've got our flyers in English and in Spanish, and on each of our flyers, we've got all 4 counties on there that we covered: Sarasota, DeSoto, Manatee, and Charlotte. And it will have those important dates, deadlines for voter registration, deadlines if you want to receive a mail-in ballot, what the election dates are, early voting periods. All of the stuff that you could need to search for should be right there and easy and accessible.
And one more thing I want to add. Voting is for all ages, all right? I've tracked the data, and some of the highest eligible and did votes, it's people who are over 100, okay? So the people who are over 100 know voting's important.
Yeah.
I would like every generation to beat that ratio. Okay, so I would not want my generation or my 10-year age group to be, only 10% of the eligible people voted. No. That is not acceptable in a society that we want excellence.
No, I think that it's true. And my grandmother, who just passed away at 103, was an avid voter. So in my family, you just vote. There was no question as to whether or not you participate. But in her last election, she had very, a lot of difficulty writing. So we had her work with an OT so that she could fill out her ballot. Yeah, and it was such a massive deal to her. And I just can't ever take that for granted. I don't want anyone to. We do.
And we want everyone to feel like your grandmother about, I have to do this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. It's always a pleasure to learn from you, especially when we're talking about why TPF cares.
And Leah, outstanding interchange. I can tell your passion, and we're going to make a difference.
Yeah, thanks. Listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or another streaming service, to learn more and stay tuned, please visit www.thepattersonfoundation.org or use the link in the description. For those watching this podcast on YouTube, scan the QR code on the screen to learn more or check out the description.